The sun beat down on the narrow streets, where dust clung to every corner and the scent of hardship lingered in the air. Among the barefoot children running about, one boy walked quietly, holding tightly to a broken toy guitar, its strings long gone but its value still immeasurable to him. At just 10 years old, he had already known hunger more than comfort, and silence more than laughter. His small home was a single dimly lit room where his mother worked tirelessly to put together whatever scraps she could find to feed the family. Nights were often filled with the rumbling of empty stomachs, yet the boy never let despair completely win. He would sit by the door, tapping the wooden toy as if it were a real guitar, humming softly to melodies only he seemed to know. Singing gave him escape from the weight of poverty, as though each note carried him to a place where dreams were still possible. While other children played with new clothes or shiny toys, he only had his voice. And he held on to it like a secret treasure. Every step he took on those dusty streets was heavy with struggle, yet his eyes shone with an unusual spark, a quiet fire that poverty could not extinguish. Somewhere deep inside, he carried a dream too big for his tiny world, the dream to stand on a stage and let his voice be heard, not just as a poor boy, but as someone who mattered. One evening, as the sky turned shades of orange and purple, the boy found himself standing on a busy street corner. Cars honked in the distance, vendors called out their prices, and people rushed past without a second glance. He held his broken toy guitar close, not because it made music, but because it gave him courage. With a deep breath, he began to sing. His voice was soft at first, trembling with nerves, but soon it grew stronger, filling the air with emotion far beyond his years. The sound cut through the noise of the street, and slowly, people began to turn their heads. A few stopped walking, their expressions softening as they listened. His song carried the weight of hunger, the ache of loss, and the fragile hope that tomorrow could be better. Strangers stood still, captivated by the purity in his voice. Coins dropped into a small tin at his feet, but he barely noticed. He wasn't singing for money, he was singing because his heart needed to. Among the small crowd was a kind stranger who couldn't ignore the magic in the boy's voice. With a phone in hand, they recorded the moment, wanting to preserve the raw beauty of what they had witnessed. That simple act, unnoticed by the boy as he sang with eyes closed, would soon change the course of his life. What began as a song on a forgotten street corner was about to echo far beyond anything he could have imagined. Weeks later, the boy stood trembling at the edge of a stage far bigger than anything he had ever seen. Bright lights blazed overhead, blinding him for a moment, and the crowd stretched out like an endless sea of faces. This was America's Got Talent, a place he had only seen on television screens and shop windows, never once imagining he would stand upon it. His small hands gripped the microphone tightly, and for a brief second, fear almost swallowed him whole. He thought of his mother waiting backstage, her eyes filled with pride and worry, and of the nights they had gone to bed hungry. He thought of the broken toy guitar that had carried him through the darkest days, and of the kind stranger's video that had somehow brought him here. That memory gave him courage. A hush fell over the auditorium. One of the judges offered an encouraging nod, as if silently telling him he belonged here. He took a shaky breath, closed his eyes, and let the first note escape. His voice trembled at first, but then it rose, clear, raw, and powerful. The silence of the audience turned into awe, every heart in the room suddenly gripped by the story hidden within his song. Though his body was small, his voice carried the strength of survival, the pain of struggle, and the hope of a better tomorrow. In that moment, he was no longer just a poor boy, he was a star rising right before their eyes. His song flowed like a river of emotion, each note carrying pieces of his story, the empty nights, the silent prayers, the quiet dream of a better life. The auditorium was spellbound. Some audience members wiped away tears, others held their hands to their hearts, unable to believe that such a powerful voice could come from such a small boy. The judges exchanged looks of astonishment, their eyes glistening with emotion. As the final note lingered in the air, a wave of silence swept across the hall, followed by thunderous applause. People rose to their feet in unison, clapping and cheering, their voices echoing louder than anything the boy had ever heard. Overwhelmed, he lowered his gaze, unsure if it was real. Then, in a moment that felt like a dream, one of the judges leaned forward, their hands slamming down on the golden buzzer. Instantly, a cascade of golden confetti rained down from above, shimmering under the stage lights like falling stars. The boy gasped, tears streaming down his face as he covered his mouth in disbelief. He had seen this moment happen to others, but never imagined it would happen to him. The crowd erupted in joy, chanting and cheering his name, while the judge stood to embrace him, whispering, "You are born to shine." The boy, once just a nameless child singing on the streets, stood bathed in golden light, his impossible dream suddenly turned into reality. Backstage, the boy rushed into his mother's arms, the golden confetti still clinging to his hair and clothes. She held him tightly, her tears falling freely, not just from pride but from years of struggle that seemed to melt away in that embrace. "You did it, my son," she whispered, her voice shaking. For the first time in a long while, hope didn't feel so far away. Producers, crew members, even strangers backstage stopped to smile and clap, touched by the purity of the moment. The boy, still overwhelmed, looked up at his mother and said softly, "We don't have to struggle anymore, Mama. I sang for you, for us." His words were filled with both innocence and determination, the kind only a child who has known hardship could carry. News of his performance spread quickly, clips of his song and golden buzzer moments circling the globe. People who had never heard of him before were suddenly inspired by his courage and voice. Donations poured in, offers of support arrived, and the boy's story began to change not just his life, but the lives of countless others who saw in him a reflection of their own struggles. From the dusty streets to the shining stage, he had proven that dreams can grow even in the hardest soil. His journey was no longer just about survival, it was about hope, kindness, and the belief that no matter where you come from, your voice can reach the world.